Hello and welcome to Take You to School with Dr. Tom Prichard. I am your host, JP John Paz from the two-man power trip of wrestling. Of course, joining me, the star of this show, the former WWE World Tag Team Champion, 8-time Smoke Mountain Wrestling Tag Team Champion, and one of the greatest trainers ever in the history of the business, the Doctor of Desire himself, Dr. Tom Prichard. Dr. Tom, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great today, John. I can't wait to come up to New Jersey in a couple weeks and see how everybody up there is doing. But I'm doing great right now. Thank you very much. Thank you for asking, by the
The
way.
beautiful, beautiful state of New Jersey, yes.
I've always loved New Jersey. Yeah, you live off what exit?
uh, you, you can
Yeah,
go to Asbury Park.
I
Yeah,
do,
there's a few exits there. Yeah,
but
yeah,
there are.
yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
So anyway, here we are taking you to school. Wanted to talk to you about the Steiner Bros, but before we get into that, you were at Raw. You were in Knoxville, Tennessee. How the hell was Raw? How was the show?
yeah. Well, the show was good. The show was entertaining. The show was. I spent most of my time sitting at catering, which is uh, a central location for a lot of people. So yeah, it was great. Saw some old friends and colleagues, and saw a lot of people I didn't know, man. But uh, the really good thing I saw this past week was the excitement and the passion, and all the guys from JPWA got to go, and I said to them the next day, you asked them if they enjoyed the show. Of course they did, and I told them people like Becky Lynch, she was right where they used to be, right where they are now. Or she was. Anyhow, I said she once was where you guys were at, and it's true because she
Right.
traveled all the way and she did seminars. I did a seminar years ago in Washington that she attended, and she told me she told me Monday night, and I thought, man, that was, I don't know, over 20 years ago. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
yeah, it was really kind of cool to see just backstage how the one thing stays constant is the excitement, um, and everybody's trying to uh, do their best. So it was a lot of fun.
Nice. Barbara says, "Are you taking questions tonight?" Yes, we are. Yes,
Barbara,
of
I'd
course.
love to take some questions tonight.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We're in Jersey. It is going to be cherry. No, wait a minute.
So I'm in Asbury Park, but you are going to be in Deptford, I believe.
Deptford, yes, Deptford, New Jersey, and
514. May
5/4.
14th, I
Yes,
believe.
yes, correct. May 14th in Deptford, New Jersey, for Super Crazy Skid Row Academy. So it is a seminar, and I think you can get all the information if you go to Skid Row Academy or Super Crazy Pro Wrestling on Facebook and have all the information. But I always like going to Jersey, whether we flew into Newark or flew into Philly.
Nice.
Yeah, there were just places that always stood out to me that I liked.
Herb Simmons, your old buddy Herb, says,
Sir,
please tell Dr. Tom
yes.
hello.
Hello, Herb. Hope you're doing well.
Nice.
We
Look at
just
this.
had Carl Lauer pass away too.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
I met Carl when I was in L.A. for the first time. Really nice man. Very nice man.
So we got a question. I know we're going to be talking about the Steiner brothers, and we'll talk about Rick in a second, but we got a question from Josh Pitts. Since the Steiner brothers now have been immortalized in the WWE Hall of Fame, does that mean that they will be put in the future WWE video games? I
Oh, I
would
would.
guess, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Sure. I would think they'd be in all the other past video games, WWE, or were they not? I don't know, but I would think they would certainly.
No, I don't think they've been in a video game in a very long time. I don't
Yeah,
think.
really. Well, yeah. Well, I certainly hope so for their sake, and I hope so for everybody who loves the Steiners. And how can you not love the Steiners?
I think the Hall of Fame, speaking of that to Josh, that's long overdue, right? For them to be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, I really do think so too. But but they're in there now, John, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. Just about being in the video games, but yeah, well deserved Hall of Fame inductees were the Steiners and Rick. I thought Rick did a hell of a speech. So did Scott, and anybody who knows Scott knows that man, that's again, you talk about authenticity and realism. That you never knew with Scott. So and I've watched some of his old stuff again, just showing our students about this is the guy when he walked in the ring. People believed that there was a possibility he could snap. I mean,
Yeah.
the way he talked, the things he would do on a promo and things like that. So definitely a case study for you for anybody coming up and wanting to learn the business, not just tag team wrestling, but both Scott and Rick were great singles wrestlers too. And once Scott found the big bad booty daddy, is that what it is?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Once he found that, it was something that certainly didn't stretch too far out of the realm of what he really was. So, what he really is, I'll say that much.
Jimmy, big fan of your Smoky Mountain work. Me too, actually.
Well, thank you very much, Jimmy. That was a lot of fun. That's why we moved. It's one of the reasons I moved back to Knoxville, because Knoxville was always a lot of fun.
Here's a funny question. He says, "His brother love your brother?" And I think we all know that answer is yes.
Well, hold on. Brother love is everyone's brother. We're all brothers through brother love, I think.
McGannon here, Sky Jellyfetti, interesting name. You had the best match at SummerSlam '93 against the Steiners. We're going to get into that in a little bit, but yes, I totally agree.
Well, I thought we had a pretty good match that night, especially. I don't know if it was the best match. I think that's a matter of opinion. I thought it was the best match, but I appreciate you thinking it was the best match too. Yeah, we had a good time that night. Detroit was hot.
Where can we buy the book? We were going to mention that obviously later on, but I guess you can mention it now as well.
Why, sure. If you go to jpwrestlingacademy.com, it's on the front page. You just click on it. It will take you to Amazon, and you can order it. Also, you can order an autograph book if you go to PayPal. $25 to Dr. Tom Prichard at AOL.com. And we can do a personally signed autograph book.
Here's a good question from Barbara. You said you wanted a question, so here we go.
Sure.
I always thought Dr. Tom was far more talented than his brother Bruce, yet Bruce gets all the credit. Why is this? Thank you. Yeah, take that. This is going to be a big one. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I'm very dry mouthed tonight. Bruce is extremely talented, a lot smarter than I ever was, and he understands. He understands what we do in the ring is that much, and it's really the outside part that counts. And he's very talented on the outside part. He understands how to talk to people. He understands how to listen to this one, negotiate, communicate, regulate. And I just wanted to wrestle my whole life. And once I got to the point where I was training people and got on the other side of it, I saw it's not so easy. And of course, being brothers, you're going to have your ideas about what's he doing to get the reaction he's getting or get the opportunities he's getting. And the fact is, he understood business better than I did, a lot better than I did. So I can't explain why things happened the way they were, but I know it was my fault that, or my decisions that led me to where I am today. I have nobody to blame but myself, if there's anything to blame about. So,
Would you say he was a better politician?
by all means, I certainly would. Yeah, but that's life. I mean, you have to be better at life. You have to know how to conduct business, talk to people, get along with people. And that's not everybody can do that. So wasn't my I think we are who we are, and we even as a child or even growing up in younger days, you establish who you are right off the bat. Some people change, but I think right off the bat, I always looked at life as it's a playground and it's a work, and I never took it seriously. Never at all. I had my goals, and then Bruce had his goals, and we both had opportunities. We both grew up in the same wrestling environment, and knew Paul Bosch, but I had this idea of traveling the world, just being a gypsy, being that vagabond, being that, hey, we're on the road tonight, that kind of stuff. And I didn't care about what was coming next. I wasn't planning to live that long. I really wasn't. I was just planning to live life and go where it took me. And I did. And he did too. But he caught on very quickly how to how to make it work and be a businessman. And I got to tell you, I fell short many, many times.
Mike Miller just met Scotty Steiner, super nice guy. How do you like that?
Well, yeah, I always thought Scott was a nice guy. Rick is a nice guy too. Rick's pretty intense. They're both intense when they want to be.
Question from Jimmy: did the Steiner brothers take liberties with you guys at all during your matches? They seem very stiff for the time.
Never. No, there was total pros, and I think it's a testament to how talented and how professional they were to make it look that stiff and to make it look that good. But no, total pros and good people.
I've talked to several guys, and it just looked like, oh man, they killed you with that one, and they would say no, and I'm like, wow, they are that damn good. I mean, obviously they can throw guys around, but they didn't. It looked like they were killing everybody.
One of the biggest things that I always point to, I worked with Stan Hansen opposite of a 6-man tag, and they beat me, of course, with the lariat. And Stan says, okay, I'm going to bring it. And I said, great, cool. Never felt it for real. And it looks so good. It's solid. But the difference between solid and stiff is it hurts. Stan didn't hurt. It was in a safe place, but he laid it in. He's a big man. It would look like shit if he didn't. And he didn't hurt. Didn't kill me, didn't hurt me. And that's the mark of being a professional. And if you can make it look that good, that's the art form. And know when to. It's fascinating when you know somebody who can lay it in, make it solid and good, and also somebody who can lay it in and kill you if they want to. Two different feelings, two different attitudes, but that's what made those guys, especially like a Brody or a Hansen. Brody's different, I think. Brody was probably took liberties with people a lot more than Stan did, no doubt. But the great thing about it is having somebody that can make it look like it's stiff and it hurts, and it really doesn't.
When was the last time you talked to James E. Cornette? Josh wants to know.
Been a little bit, but he's busy. I'm busy, so we touch base when we can. But I think it was around Christmas time, and that was it.
What is your workout music? What do you like to
Whatever.
listen to?
Yeah, whatever's at the gym. I don't put headsets on anymore. It just gets in the way. So whatever's playing at the gym, I can't hear anyway, and I kind of tune everybody out. So, and I've worn the headsets before, but they get in the way for me. I take my glasses off when I work out too, and I do my thing, and I don't pay attention to anybody else. So I don't really, whatever's on at the gym is great with me because I can't hear it anyway.
I wonder if that's the Mike Miller from like the Portland days.
Portland?
I
think Mike would have said hello. I've known me and Mike for a long time.
Herb Simmons, your buddy, back again, says, what is the number one thing lacking in the business today from the boys?
I don't know that it's lacking as much as it's being allowed. We all change. Sports change, generations change, and you have to change with the people who are watching. And again, I like to go fishing, and I like strawberries. When I go fishing, I'm putting worms on the hook because I'm trying to catch fish. You're trying to draw fans. You're trying to draw eyeballs to your product. So whether you're a casual fan or a wrestling fan, you have, as a promoter, you have to figure out what is going to draw people. And let me give it for a roundabout overall question. Cover everything. Authenticity, realism, just being who you are. People will know if you're playing a part or if you're being who you are, or something to connect to. I think when Bret Hart was around, it was easy to connect to his Canadian hero. He believed he was a hero, and he acted as such. Shawn Michaels was Heartbreak Kid. He was authentically that guy. When what you saw on TV is what you got when you met him. And I think a lot of that's missing today because you're trying to put somebody in a character role that doesn't really fit, and the guy or gal trying to do it is trying to make it fit, and they're finding it hard or difficult or just outright impossible to feel it. That I could be way off base on this, but for me, when I see it from my eyes, I'm wondering, is authenticity really matter anymore, or is it about the over the top characters again? Going back to R-Truth as the guest referee for Snuka and Dana Brooks with Reggie and Tozawa. You know, it was a comedy match. I get that. Do you need that in wrestling? I believe there's a place for it, certainly, but it's just the format and the whole presentation has changed. You come out and instead of fighting each other, you cut a 20-minute promo, or instead of a run-in with no music, you always have to have the music. It's a TV business today. In the old days, that's ridiculous. You're given a warning. Why would you warn somebody coming to run in? But all these elements are pretty much ancient and passé in today's world. But could it be reintroduced and meant to mean something? I don't know. I just think that's one of the things that's lacking today. I don't know if it's the number one, but it's one of the things lacking today. We grew up, you and I, John, on a different brand of wrestling, different kind of wrestling, where it was presented in a different manner and fashion. But we still had the comedy stuff. You still had the guys who did the gimmicks, and it was meant to be entertaining, always meant to be entertaining. But then you had your guys who would go out and do the real I would say more serious matches, like people would say the preliminaries are fixed and phony and all that stuff. But boy, when the world champion comes to town, that's real. They're really fighting there. So I heard that so many times, and it really made no sense because you're wrestling the same guy who's there in the territory, doing the same stuff. But either way, I think that is missing, but I don't know if it's needed today because we do live in a different culture and a different world. So it's hard. It really is hard to say unless you have your ear to the ground or you're right there involved in it. So at least that's what I think, Herb.
Jackie Howard, who does the Steiner brothers make you think of when you think of guys from the 70s or the 80s?
Wow, I don't know if I can pinpoint anybody specific because the Steiners were pretty unique. You had Scott. Gosh, his heyday 240, 250, who could do this Frankensteiner, who could do this these really agile moves. I don't know. I really can't. And nobody really stands out as far as the Steiner brothers, except maybe the Sharp brothers, but I haven't seen enough of them. But that's going way back. The Sharp brothers from the 60s and 70s, Ben and Mike, were big guys, pretty agile too.
Was your spot on Roddy Piper type promos in Memphis a rib on Roddy?
First of all, I would never even attempt to rib Roddy Piper because that would get me nothing but grief, and I had too much respect. That was something, again, I think came naturally, but at the same time, being around Piper, listening to Piper, and seeing the kind of person he was in the back, seeing the kind of guy he was that everybody respected and everybody just he was such a, I want to say a stand-up guy, yes, but he was a you got the idea he wasn't, there was no pretense at all, none, and he had respect from everybody. He earned it. So I think it was one of those things that came. I was trying to figure out a way to do it. And when I did it, yeah, I knew I was ciphering Piper to come in. But he called one time when my dad had a heart attack and we were at home in Houston. I answered the phone. And he was asking for Bruce, and then he found out it was Roddy. We said hellos, and I said, "Look, I know I've been doing you on TV, but if I was going to copy anybody, I was going to copy the best." He says, "No, it's okay. Keep doing what you're doing. It's cool. I don't mind. Keep it up." So great, man. But I know what else is he going to say? He's that kind of guy. No, stop doing it right now. Change. But it was one of those things that at the time for me, it was more natural. And I know it sounded like Piper, so I wish I wouldn't have done it now, but I did it. So no rib on Roddy, and he was very nice about it. So I just had nothing else. I never thought I was going to New York. So there you go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Back to the Steiner Brothers. John Hancock. Thoughts on Scott Steiner's run in WWE in the early 2000s being derailed by Triple H?
Well, my thoughts, I really haven't thought about it, but once again, I think it comes down to Scott knows what the business is, and he knew where he's coming. He knew he had to have known. Let me say this, my assumption that he knew, but I would assume he would understand and know what he's getting into, and how to prepare for it, and what to do when it happens, and that's kind of my thoughts on it. I don't know the whole details. Nobody's told me how it worked, but looking from outside in, it's all about the game and how you play it.
Yep.
So there you go. Kind of fits right in.
Scotty Steiner said in a few interviews that they kept requesting him to take drug tests, and he finally got tired of them asking. He said, "You know what? Send a limo. Triple H better be in the limo, when
Right.
you send it to me, and then I'll go with it." He said, then they never mentioned it to him again.
But that's the thing, it's like you have to know that, and you have to know what to do to do what you have to do. So once look, I think once anybody gets past a certain age or a certain point in life, you understand this is how it works, and this is why youth is wasted on the young, because if you know that when you're younger, you're not going to make the same mistakes. But that's why you make those mistakes, because you think you know, but you really don't know until you see it with your own eyes. Like, David Copperfield didn't make the Statue of Liberty disappear. So, I mean, once you understand it's a trick, and the what you're looking at isn't real, it's an illusion. You understand it's an illusion, and you look past that and you see what's happening for real, instead of like, oh, no, we never meant to do that. Oh my God, how could we? What a mistake. Oh God, oh man, gosh, I'm so sorry. Instead of what's really being said, because that's the way it's done. At least that's the way I've seen it done, and believe it's done pretty much anywhere you go. We can't do that in polite society. You have to do it with an illusion.
Going back to the Steiner Brothers, when did you first meet them? Was it literally in 1993 before SummerSlam? Was that the first time you ever met those guys?
Yes, it was. It was 93, and quite honestly, we didn't know, and I didn't know how they would be or how they were. If they were one of these, if there were a couple guys who don't like selling for midgets, all these guys are too small. Oh, what the hell are we doing? Well, we were with Jim Cornette, and they had a history working with the Midnights. And Jim always liked working with them, and they loved working with Jim and Dennis and Bobby and Dennis and Stan, or Bobby and Stan. So when we went in, they were very cool. They tried to rib us like one night, and by saying something like, "Oh, we're not doing that shit," or something with those guys, just trying to rib. Then we knew it was a rib because they couldn't keep it straight either. So, but great guys.
When you're setting up this match, obviously 8/30, 1993, SummerSlam 93, you guys are making your WWF debuts, so to speak, really, and main show debut. I mean, pay-per-view at SummerSlam. It's the biggest show of the summer. what goes into the match? Are you leading the match? Are Steiner Brothers leading the match? Because it is technically your first match, but you guys are the heels.
Yes, but again, Rick and Scott had had so much respect for Jim Cornette because he had set up their matches in WCW, working with Bobby and Dennis, or Dennis and Bobby, or Bobby and Stan, or Dennis and Bobby. It didn't matter. Usually, it was Jimmy and Midnights who set up the spots because they knew how to shine baby faces, and the Steiners loved working with them. It was a lot of fun. So when we got there, Jim already had an idea for the match, and all. That's so great because you walk in and say, "Hey, what do you think of this?" Boom, 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 and they say, "Love it, great." What's there to argue about? What's there to be unhappy about? And that's when it's really fun. And working with guys like that who understand, you have to do things in the match to get people into the match. And again, I say it one more time: they were all pros. The entire match, the entire night, the entire time.
You guys actually had several matches in Smoky Mountain as well after that. So more towards the fall of '93, but a bunch of matches, even getting some wins via DQ, I guess. And when they beat you by DQ. So I guess keeping everybody strong in Smoky Mountain when you guys are wrestling.
Well, Scott brought his dog down too in the Coliseum in Knoxville, and I don't know if it's still out there on YouTube. It was at one time, and the dog knew how to work. Okay, so let me get this straight. Jim tells me this. He says the dog knows how to work. I say, really? How we're gonna call the spots to him too? And it's like, no, he'll work with you. I promise. So we get out there, and back in the locker room. Scott Steiner is messing with Jimmy because Jimmy's terrified of this pit bull, and Scott's leading him on, egging him on to go get Jimmy, and Jimmy. It was hilarity ensued, but in the ring, we did a spot and I rolled out, and the dog was outside and came around as I fed in front of the ring. The dog goes for a bite, and he gets right to my crotch, like gets that close to my crotch. And I sell it because it looks like he got me, and the dog knew how to work. So anyway, yeah, it was a lot of fun, man. And in Smoky Mountain, when they came in, it was no pressure. They came in, did their job, had a match, and we had our spots down, we had our feeling down, and the people enjoyed it. Hell, we enjoyed it.
When you're working with them, obviously, they know what to do and you guys know what you're doing. Is there a time in Smoky Mountain where Vince says something like Cornette, like, I don't want these guys jobbing, or you got to keep them strong? Like, does that happen?
Never. No, Jim knew not to do that anyway. I think he asked Pat. He told us he had asked Pat if they could switch the belts when they were down there. Let's do a switch at the first of the week and give back to him by the end, just to give us some credibility. But he said no, they're about to switch to the Quebecers, and the Steiners were leaving, and they didn't want to do that in between. So it was fine. I mean, they came in, they gave us credibility anyway, just being there on the show and doing the matches and having the matches we had. So, no, it was all good. It really was.
Changing gears for a second here. Who would be on your Mount Rushmore of wrestling trainers from Matt R?
Well, I'll tell you this right now. And I've never seen this guy teach, but I've read his rants and I've heard from people who he's trained with. I'll put George South on there first of all. I will, because he's an old school. Yeah, he's an old school Southern guy who doesn't mince words. He says what he means and means what he says, and he will explain why it's done this way. But I also like how he holds people accountable. If you're coming to learn, then be ready to learn and listen, pay attention. And I appreciate it with George. I'll tell you another guy, Sinbo D from Las Vegas. He's a pretty damn good coach. He came to JPWA and he got in there with the guys and he gave some really great advice, used some really great examples. And I think that's a huge part of being a coach, not just showing you what to do, but giving you some ideas and then demonstrating them how it works. And also giving you the permission to go out and try things and not be stuck in, we have to do it this way only. Go out and create and just be unique and have that body language. So he's another guy who really who actually was at an FCW for a while. Then when he broke out, he got to go to the PC and be a guest coach for a week. And I understand why when he came to JPWA, because everything that came out of his mouth made sense to me, stuff I haven't heard before. And it's very cool when that happens too, when guys come out and have a passion for it. Mike Mondo would be on there as well because he's got a really good head for the business. And I don't know how many are on Mount Rushmore, but there's 3. George South, Simbo D, and Mike Mondo.
You got to have 4 on Mount Rushmore.
Well, you know what?
Yourself. You're going to put yourself on there.
No. Well, you know what? That would just be false modesty, wouldn't it?
What about Stu? What about Stu Hart?
What about Stu Hart?
He's got to be on there, no?
I don't know. I've never trained with Stu Hart. I talked to Stu, but Stu is one of those old timers that just said, "Hey, come here, kid. Let me show you something." I'll put myself on the 4th one. How about that?
All right. I thought you might say Danny Cage, but all right. There you go.
No, I'll say Rip Rogers. Thank you for reminding me. Yes. I will say Rip Rogers because Danny learned from Rip too. And I'm going to tell you about this. Rip Rogers had a unique way of conveying his message. But he was very old school and very direct, and that couldn't be done today because the political correctness would be poison. I mean, he wouldn't make it, and that's a lot of times doing it that way. I think is better than the soft way. Sometimes you need to land on the hard concrete to know what it feels like instead of a mattress all the time. And Rip was one of those guys who told you how it was, told you how it is. And of course it was his opinion, but more times than not, his opinion fit the matter, fit the time that you were going through right then. If it was in a match and he stopped you and said, "No, slow down, do it this way and follow these steps." As long as you did that, it worked. If you deviated from what he asked you to do or told you to do, that's when things went south. So he was one of those guys that I was amazed when I first saw him. I'm not amazed. I was just impressed. How about that? I wasn't amazed, but I was impressed with the way Rip Rogers taught people, demonstrated people, talked to people after he yelled and got your attention. And then he said, okay, he calmly explained. And then he calmly would demonstrate what he meant. Then you do it again. And then he would calmly tell you, no, do it this way one more time. So it's a process. And I've seen guys do it yelling, screaming, get out of my ring. And I've seen guys do it like, hold on here. Yeah, Rip Rogers would have today's generation running for their sake. Yes, that's what I'm saying. But God Almighty, he's a George South is a calmer version of Rip in the ring. I think George wouldn't swear or cuss or anything, but sometimes, Rip was that guy who would tell you straight up, and some people couldn't handle that. But I thought he was a great trainer. So there's my 4: Rip, Sin, George, and who else? Rip, Sin, George, John.
You didn't say Danny Cage. You said Rip. You said, hey, who the heck was? Oh, you put yourself on there, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I took myself off, put Rip on there. George South.
What about, more importantly, going back to the Steiner Brothers for a second, was it Arnold the Pitbull from Ronaldo Reyes? Is that the Pitbull's name?
I don't remember his name, but he's a good puppy dog. He was a good dog. He really was a good dog. Being around the boys and all that stuff. I don't know how I would have handled it, but for him, he was a good boy, good dog.
Was Scott's heel turn the right thing to do? Remember when he turned heel on Rick in '98 in WCW and he broke up the Steiners and he joined the NWO? Is that the right thing to do?
I if it was right for him, I mean, I really don't know. I honest to God, that's just a matter of opinion. And maybe it was time for the Steiners to break up, and that was one way to do it. Was it right? I have no idea.
Mike Mondo was the other guy that we
Yes, it
mentioned and
was.
then did
Thank
mention.
you.
Sorry, Mike Mondo. I just realized that. So here's a question for you. Who came up with the rope hanging angle with the Dirty White Boy, Tony Anthony, and yourself? I know we have a whole episode back in the archives dedicated to I'd like to talk to Tom, but who actually came up with that angle?
That was something I saw with Nick Bockwinkel years and years ago, and I came up with the angle of putting the rope around the neck and doing the hanging angle. There was a guy in Texas called the Hangman, and he would carry the noose to the ring, put it over the corner, and at the end of the match, he would take his opponent and put the noose over his head and beel him from corner to corner. Bockwinkel came in one night or one afternoon and saved the poor baby face, and the Hangman just beat the hell out of Bockwinkel and hung him from the ring. So I thought that looked vicious, and that would be something we could do. But we didn't get to rehearse it like everybody rehearses things now. I don't think we would have anyway. But come to find out, just pulling on that rope, you don't have to do much at all. It just pulling on it will tighten it. And we didn't realize how far it was from the interview platform to the ring. And, we just had to improvise. So, but that was my idea. And originally it was just hang me from the ring, but then we came up with destroying the set, handcuffing me, dragging me, and having blood come out of my mouth. But it happened too late. We had to, anyway, it wouldn't work until the end. The blood.
Has Dr. Tom mastered Steiner math yet?
I mastered Steiner math before there was Steiner math.
Have you ever heard those great promos from him doing
Yes,
that?
I have. That is tremendous. And that's what I'm talking about when I tell people cut a promo. It doesn't have to always make sense. It's just where people go, what? Or they want to listen to you. You want to hear what you're saying. And that's part of the fun of this business. You can cut a promo like that and people will remember it and go, what in the hell? Do you remember this promo? And then they pull it up and go, wow, listen to this crazy stuff. And that's what it's supposed to be. Especially back then, professional wrestlers were on the outside of society and polite society, especially. So, yeah, Scott would say things, and a lot of guys would say things where you weren't sure what it was, but you knew you wanted to hear him say the next thing. Like Jake Roberts was such a great promo guy. Mark Lewin could be such a great promo. Gary Hart knew how to tell stories. Those were the guys that you listen to and wonder, what are they talking about, or what experiences? This is what I always thought. What experiences did a guy like Mark Lewin or a guy like Gary Hart? I grew up around Mark Lewin, going to the gym with a guy like Mark Lewin. And he was the maniac for a reason. And when I got to working out with him and I got to go over before the workout and sit around the table with him and his 87-year-old father, Sid, tell these stories about Hawaii and the islands and all these other crazy stories about King Curtis Iokea, Peter Maivia. And I would want to know, this is what shaped those guys' lives and their promos. And they're talking about the third eye and the island, the mountain, Maui, whatever the hell it was. You wanted to hear what they said because they weren't talking like everybody else. they were talking in special code, and they knew, and only a few chosen ones knew or even listened and cared to listen to them. So Scott Steiner was the same kind of guy who would say stuff. No, people would go, "Whoa, what the hell? This guy nuts." Yes, he is. May I have another?
Was there any animosity between the Road Warriors and the Steiner Brothers that you know of?
Not that I know of. But I wouldn't think so because the Road Warriors were the same kind of guys. Honest to God, if you didn't know them and looking again from the outside, you would think, if only you knew was promos on TV and what you saw in the arena. If that's all you knew, you could see maybe there might be some animosity. But if you knew them in the back with the Steiner brothers, who were actually pretty cool guys and big guys, incredible guys, amateur wrestlers, real guys, against Hawk and Animal, who were two big guys, badasses, worked as bouncers in the bars in Minnesota, and I think they knew the professionalism that went along with this was a lot better than having some stupid grudge or animosity. It just doesn't make sense. Everybody's making money and had their place. They had their place in the business.
Man, Road Warrior Animal's such a nice guy. I knew him a little bit. He was buddies with my friend Vinny. And the last time I worked with him was a few years ago, but I brought him in for a show. And he goes, man, we got to prank Vinny. Like he wanted to prank him on my phone.
Right.
It's like kind of mentality, but it's so funny. It's like this gigantic guy. He's like, we got to prank your friend. I'm like, you're, our
Dude,
buddy.
And back then, most of the guys had a sense of humor. Most of the guys, when you go in the locker room, Hawk was one of the funniest guys. Joe was a little more reserved, and he was more the guy who was doing business. But as he got older and later on, as I got to know him even more, he was funny. He was entertaining. Just wanted to have fun in the business and wanted to be a part of it. And but most of the guys back then had a sense of humor, and the locker room was a great place to be and joking around and having fun. Hacksaw Duggan, one of the most entertaining guys, but the funniest guy. And one of the most well-loved in the business was Brad Armstrong, who would come in and make everybody happy and have a good time. So that's, when Herb asked about what's really missing today, that's another number one. That would be probably the number one thing. The camaraderie or the happiness and just a lot of fun. Again, that was a different model back then. You're working 5 nights a week in a territory. But even on the planes, even when you're flying and going different places, there was a time when the boys were having a lot more fun, and it was joyful backstage. Not that it's not now, because I'm not back there. I don't know, but I think getting off the phones, because got a lot of guys in the locker room are on their phones and even texting guys from this side of the locker room to the other side, just a couple feet away. You're texting somebody with your phone. but that's where we live today, and that's how we live today. So,
good question here from Ibsen. Did you ever see the Steiners pull nasty ribs on people? Rick taping up Dink, both Steiner brothers slashing Ludwig Borg's tires. Many shoots throughout the years have them pulling crazy ribs.
No, I never saw the Steiners pull a rib on anybody. Actually, I didn't know they slashed Ludwig Borg's tires. I don't know why they would do that. That's not a rib. That's vandalism. So there's a difference. A rib is funny, to somebody on this deal. This is just nasty. I don't know why that would happen, but they might have had a gimmick, had an angle going on backstage. I don't know.
Our friend Lash LaRue used to say that they pulled a lot of pranks on Disco Inferno. Disco says no, that he was buddies with them, but he has said that they pulled some ribs. Disco even admitted a few times that he'd tape him, like Rick and Scott would tape him somewhere so he couldn't get away,
Right?
Or they'd be on a jet ski. They'd knock him off the jet ski so he couldn't get back on.
Right. Well, that's a rib.
Yeah.
I mean, in wrestling, if they don't like you, they ain't gonna mess with you. But if they like you, sometimes it's being part of a rib. I don't.
Apparently, during a live show, I guess it was a house show, they stripped DDP naked many years ago and taped him up so he couldn't, and they threw him out where the fans were.
Yeah, well, that might happen too. And I just saw Rick taping up Dink. Now that
Yeah.
I think probably did happen. I mean,
Yeah.
I would see that, but once again, the atmosphere, the vibe was different, and it was anything I say is going to be held against me in a court of law. But the point is, it was fun, and for that time period, and the guys who were involved in it, I would think understood what it was, and it was the craziness. It wasn't everyday life. it was the circus. It was doing that, and that's why we got in it, because you didn't want to be every day the same thing over and over and over and over. So,
Did you ever hear the one with Sean Waltman? Rick
which one?
well,
Which
Rick
one?
Rick apparently got a gun with blanks, and he was like pretending he was going to shoot him. And Waltman was, pretty scared, and he did shoot him with the blank. He thought he literally thought he was killing him.
Yeah.
It's because he thought Rick was nuts. What was he doing? But he shot him with a blank, and they're
Well, those blanks, as we've known through the years, can hurt somebody and
Yes.
kill somebody. So he's lucky he didn't get in trouble. But I know. Because I got into this on the Twitter thing with Taker, talking about when he walked in, you had real men in the locker room with guns and knives and all that stuff. Okay, well, again, a different era, different time in history. And I don't expect anybody to think that would be normal in a normal society, but this wasn't. It's in the wrestling society. You had your own society. Right, wrong, or indifferent. If you were going to get into this, and I would venture to say, even to this day, although with WWE hiring really real athletes out of college, and I hate to say that, real athletes out of college, just because that was what it was back then. That's what it was back then, and then people understood that. In places like Texas and Tennessee, you had hardworking people who would come in and knew what a fight looked like in a bar, and those were the kind of people who came to wrestling. In the Northeast, you had your brawlers. That was brawling in the Northeast, and you had a certain clientele who would come in and see the wrestling at the Garden. You also have people who wore suits to wrestling matches at one time. Now, it just changes with the eras. If something isn't working, you change it. And I think everybody realizes that wrestling and the entertainment business as a whole is changing. I mean, COVID hit, we got a lot of excuses and a lot of reasons. But the fact is, wrestling will always be, to me, that society that just a few amount of crazy people actually want to do this. I mean, can you think about that for just a second? There are people out there watching this today, and they have that same love and that same passion of drawn into it. And then when they get old enough, like some of the guys we have now, they go to a wrestling school, they find a wrestling school and take that step. Think about that. That's taking the next step that a lot of people wouldn't. But those people who do and want to go out and train 2 or 3 nights a week, that's a different type of person. It really is, because to go and fall down in a ring, to hit ropes or steel cable and have it do the damage it does to your side, and then to listen to somebody scream at you, to understand an arm drag, to understand a headlock, to understand slowing down, and just the little things that mean everything, and stick with it and really want to do this. That's think about that. That's insane, to give up a secure life if you have a job, insurance, benefits, you have a wife, you have children, but you choose to go train, and you choose to go to some of these towns that may draw 20 people. 20 people. It's not the Madison Square Garden, but you have people who want to go out and perform. What is it about professional wrestling? There's still that element of coming from one side of the arena, walking into a ring, and performing in front of however many people it may be, whether it's 20 or 20,000. You have to have that inside you to want to do that. There has to be something that connects you to say, I have got to be a performer in that ring, whether it's Madison Square Garden or whether it's Saltwater, Tennessee. Doesn't matter. So, anyway, I don't know where that question was or what you even asked me, but what the hell? It sounded good to me. All right, here we
the
go.
legendary Bob Cook, the man with the second
Yeah.
greatest punch in the business. I saw Rick Steiner chasing the junkyard dog around with a gun one night in a dressing room. Needless to say, the dog was sweating bullets, pun intended.
Right. But once again, the dog, Scott Steiner, dog knows he's not going to shoot him, but he doesn't know he's not going to shoot him, but he's going to put on it. He's, in my opinion, I think they were both having fun, working. Well, how could that be fun? The guy's chasing you with a gun. I don't know. You're cutting a promo. You're doing a vignette. Whatever it is. It's for the entertainment of the boys and yourself. And I know as barbaric that may sound, it was a lot more fun back then to me.
It's funny that Bob's on here. I was just talking to Sully earlier today, our buddy Kevin Sullivan. Right. He said the best punches, we were saying Bob Cook, Jerry Lawler, and he threw out his favorite, the great Kabuki. I was like, wow. I was like, never heard his name thrown in that. But
not a great punches, no, but
yeah, he said great Kabuki as his favorite punch. I was like, wow, great Kabuki. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, very nice. And Kabuki for that time wasn't a big guy.
No, not at all.
Yeah, but that just goes to show you if you're authentic and you look like you can kick somebody's butt, and then they'll believe it.
Bob said Rick was definitely having fun. No doubt.
Yeah, I bet. And I think Bob would agree that was a hell of a time to be around. I mean, it really was.
The Nache man says, do you have any stories of ribs being pulled on the Steiners? If so, would the Steiners get mad, laugh it off, or get even?
See, I don't have any good stories about ribs on the Steiners because we were around them just that little bit of time around SummerSlam, and a couple times, I've seen Scott and Rick here and there through the years, but we weren't really around them that much, and at that time, nobody was ribbing those guys. So
yeah,
it might have been fun.
Though, Knobs and Sags, I've heard, would kind of go back and forth with them, but they're tough as nails. So I mean, they could probably, take the beating or maybe give some out. Yeah,
but Knobs and Sags are insane too. So I mean, they were were four insane participants in this one, and Knobs and Sags were the guys who got put in jail in Tampa, and yet they had everybody else going nuts, and they wanted to get them. The sheriffs wanted to get them out of jail because they were causing so much chaos inside, and I could see that happening because they just don't care, and
yeah.
Once again, Herb, that's number 2 what's missing in the business.
Why aren't the Midnight Express in the Hall of Fame? That's a great question.
That's a great question. I have no idea. I think certainly after the Rock and Roll went in, they might have even gone at the same time, I think, but I think it's a crime that everybody from Midnight Express is not in there, from Jim Cornette to Dennis Condrey, Stan Lane, Bobby Eaton, Randy Rose. Everybody who was a part of that whole deal should be in the Hall of Fame.
Norvell Austin,
I will say that too, just because it was a catalyst, but I don't know if they'd see it that way. At least Jim, Bobby, Dennis, and Stan should be in the Hall of Fame. No doubt.
What about any tag teams that may have copied the Midnight Express? Do they get to be in the Hall of Fame as well?
Example.
Heavenly Bodies.
No. But we didn't have a Hall of Fame career like those guys, man, in Charlotte, and I get that. They were on the national stage. They broke ground in Louisiana. I mean, they really did. They changed the houses and stuff. They really did. When we came along as the Midnight Express, we were supposed to be as the Heavenly Bodies. It was supposed to be Stan and Bobby.
Yeah.
So I get it. And we were in a regional area, and then we went to WWE, and that was it.
Bobby Cook, he says he agrees 100%. I don't recall much, if any, drama in the dressing rooms back in those days. Most of us all got along and were just having a good time. having to grow up and not having to grow up and get real jobs.
And exactly. That's what it was. So that was a very, very cool time. I wish that model existed today, but it just doesn't, and time marches on. But that is part of what's missing. A lot of that education, living in the Falcons Rest in Atlanta, or living at the Bomber Motel in Portland. That was part of the education, and that was part of the deal. Not having to have a real job and doing what you loved, and my gosh, getting to do it every night. It was like a dream came true, and it was really like not having a job. And so I don't know how it gets any better than that.
With NXT nowadays, I know Dennis is saying he'd rather watch 2001 WCW than today's product, but with current NXT, obviously Bronson Steiner, if you will, Bronson Rex Steiner, aka Braun Breaker, is the champion, and Rick has been making a few appearances. They got the little feud going with Joey Gacy. He took his Hall of Fame ring. He's feuding with him. He's beating up Rick. What do you think, though, about using the Steiners more, like on TV and stuff? I mean, was it a long time coming, or do you think this is perfect fit with Braun Breaker being his son?
It's a perfect fit by all means, and I think that's a huge reason to put him in the Hall of Fame, but also add to the credibility. I mean, here's your dad, a Hall of Famer, coming on TV and being able to participate in his son's career a little bit, but also it works both ways. You're giving Braun credibility, as well as giving you credibility in the business, to help out other people who are there. NXT. While Rick is there, he's able to talk, he's able to scout, he's able to give his opinion and ideas to those guys too. So I mean, when you're there, when he's there, I'm sure they're not just using him in this one angle. It helps everybody in the long run. And the Steiners have that Hall of Fame background. They've been in the big matches. They've done the big angles. They have been a credible team and credible singles wrestlers from pretty much the beginning. And so I think it helps everybody all the way around for Rick to be there and help his son and help anybody who asks.
Interestingly enough, 2005, you got a victory over Rick Steiner for the NWA Alabama heavyweight title. Don't know if you remember that.
Oh, I do remember. That was horrible. Horrible match. We were not on the same page at all. Not at all. That wasn't his fault.
So it was not like SummerSlam 93 then.
Not near as like SummerSlam 93.
Also, this is an interesting one, WrestleCade, which always, Thanksgiving weekend, they always put on the best shows, conventions. They always have great matches. Tracy and the boys do a great job over there. But here's a four-way match. The Steiner Brothers defeat the Faces of Fear, the Rock and Roll Express, and yourself and George South. What the hell?
I'll be right back. John, I'll be right back. Hold on.
Oh, okay. Dr. Tom will be right back. He's going to get something. I don't know what it is. Let me see here. Let's see if we got some good questions, just maybe that I can answer. Oh, almost got his name right. He's impressed. That is a hard one. Yeah, is it Nache, man? That is a tough one. But Dr. Tom will be right back. Let's see. Does Dr. Tom know who Dan Morade is? I don't even know who Dan Morade is. That's a good one. We'll have to figure that one out. Did he ever see Haku in a bar fight? Everyone said he was the toughest and not someone you'd want to fight. I've heard many stories about Haku in bar fights, pulling guys out, eyes out, biting their nose. I mean, not a guy you want to mess with. One of the toughest guys. I would put him maybe number one. The Steiner brothers obviously would be up there as well. Someone had a question here about the toughest guys in the business, shooter-wise, and Steiners, Haku, Barbarian.
Sorry, there was a siren back there, and I had to check the siren out to make sure there was somebody crawling in my house. But
nice.
We took care of it. I sicked the dogs on them. Okay.
So somebody was talking about tough guys, shooters and stuff, and then I saw the question here about Haku in a bar fight. Have you ever seen something like that? But I always think of tough guy shooters. Haku, Steiner brothers always come to mind first.
Yeah, no, I've never seen Haku in a bar fight, but I made a trip with Barb, the Barbarian, one time, who's one of the nicest guys in the world. But um, but Barb tends to let me see, tends to get a little intense at times. And on this trip, he was getting intense. And it wasn't a bar fight. It wasn't anything like that. But he liked to bite glass and do things. So I've seen Barbarian do the bite the glass, chew it up type thing. Didn't swallow it. He spit it out. But I haven't seen Haku. I'm just saying I've seen guys. I've seen Matt Bourne in a bar fight. I've seen Manny Fernandez in a bar fight. And that's about as far as I got. So Haku, no, I don't know if I'd want to be around there, but yeah, I would hope he didn't want to fight these days either. It's not worth it. It's really not worth it. So anyway,
Have you noticed a difference in tag team wrestling? Speaking of the Steiner Bros, have you noticed the difference now and then tag team wrestling? I don't know if they're WWE is supposedly is trying to bring it back with giving this long run to the Usos and stuff, but they always do that where the tag team titles mean something and they mean nothing the next week. I mean, who knows
right.
what time?
Well, no, you have guys like the Usos, you have guys like FTR, you have guys that understand tag team wrestling, but of course, there's always going to be differences in different eras, stuff like that. I've noticed it, but I think that's the way it's supposed to be. You're supposed to either evolve or change, or with the times. You can't have necessarily guys like the Infernos, the Von Brauners. I'm talking about guys that I grew up watching. Okay, those are the guys I judged tag teams by. Then later on, as I saw the British Bulldogs and saw the Hart Foundation and things like that, those were actual teams that knew how to work together. Tag teams are different today because that's what it demands. So,
Matthew wants you to say hello.
hello, Matthew.
Matthew Holland, nice. Here is a good one, and we'll just take a couple more before we leave.
Okay.
But I'm a big Rickroot fan. So you have any good Rickroot stories? He loves his matches with Warrior in '88 and '89.
I was only around Rick a couple times too. I remember. Again, this was. I don't know if I should sell that, but
Come on, Rick's passed away. Come on.
I know. But Dustin Rhodes and I were on the same flight going somewhere. We were doing a switching planes. We had about an hour in between planes. We got off the plane. We saw Rude and Austin Rude coming in one way, Austin going another way. And we all met up at the same place and said, hey, what are you guys doing here? Well, we got a layover. Cool. Let's go to the bar. So we went to the bar and spent 45 minutes in there for that layover, and just talking. General, I didn't really know Rick that well, but just talking, having a good time. And I have no real good stories about him. He just he was like everybody else, I think, at that time, and especially the Minnesota guys. It all came, I think, to a head with Curt Hennig. He was their guy that everybody looked to, and I can understand that. I was in Oregon with Curt, and he knew how to make every minute count. I mean, he lived life to its fullest, and in the locker room, at the shows, on the way to the shows, all those guys had a great work ethic and sense of humor, and made things fun. So,
Fan of the business. Tommy's anecdotes and stories are unbelievable. He loves it. Let's just do one final question, and it'll be from a fan of the business. What city had the hottest rats? Great question. Yeah.
you know what? Let me say this, John, because that seems so horrible in 2022, does it not? I mean, it just seems so horrible to live that life, live that way.
That being said, though, is it Pensacola or
No, what I'm saying is, I said this to someone not too long ago. There are no real rock and roll bands anymore. He says, "Yeah, they are." He started naming off the bands. I said, "No, you're missing the point. There's no Doors. There's no Beatles. There's no Van Halen. There's no Alice in Chains. There's no being pirates on the road and coming into the town and just, lock up your daughters, lock up your wives, lock up your back door, run for your life type kind of guys. AC/DC wasn't around anymore. These guys would come and purge and pillage the entire town. It just doesn't exist anymore. But that was what it was. And that time period, I romanticized the 70s concerts in the 60s. When it was a dark arena, the lights would go down, or the arena lights would be on, then the lights would go down, the band would hit the stage, and it wasn't Kiss yet, but it was, the Zeppelins. I even saw Frank Zappa live, and it had the same vibe. Saw Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue a few times, and you just knew debauchery was abound. You knew that, and it was the same thing with wrestling. Everywhere you went, you had somebody who wanted to be around. And yeah, but when you say Rats, the good old days, I mean, it just sounds like such a horrible thing to do. But at the same time, everywhere was great. I mean, everywhere had. I don't know that I've been anywhere that I didn't have a good time. You know what I mean? It's like even the bad times, even in Memphis, when the towns were horrible, the pay was horrible, you were rooming with somebody else, and you'd get up, you'd go to the gym, then you do what you had to do before the town, and you got to the town, and it was that culture. And well, let me tell you, hold on, we didn't. That's not even a good question. but everywhere was that, because people, you had, that was the culture. You had fans who went for various reasons. Some were because they loved the action, some were because they loved the boys and the action, some because it was just, that was their meeting point. So yeah, like Bob said, they were good old days. But today, again, in polite society, isn't this ironic that everybody talks about cancel culture and being polite and all these horrible things that happened in the past? Yet look at what's going on today. I'm sorry, but I think that's like the kettle in the pot, and I don't see a problem with it, but I can understand how some people look at it and see how revolting, how barbaric, archaic, and oh my God, how could you have been so horrible? There were always willing participants, and it was always cool wherever we went. At least wherever I went, it was.
So the best Pensacola, the worst probably Memphis, my guess.
No, not at all. There was no cities that was worse.
Oh,
Everywhere we went, they were great. You had great everywhere. It was fantastic. I can't pick just one.
So let's head towards the plugs. Let's talk about your book, A Pro Wrestling Curriculum,
you
Advice, Suggestions,
that, didn't you? Yeah.
Stories to help the aspiring pro get to the next level. Dr. Tom, where can they get the book? Mention that again in the book.
The smelliest rats. Who even asked that kind of question?
That was Dennis.
I know it was Dennis. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Probably a friend of yours, John. I'm really sorry.
Could be Dennis Condry for all we know.
No, well, good point. All right, you can get this book at jpwrestlingacademy.com. It's on the front page. Just click it. It'll take you to Amazon. jpwrestlingacademy.com and check it out.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. You can follow Dr. Tom on Twitter at Dr. Tom Prichard. Check out my website, tmptempire.com, for more. Go to prowrestlingtees.com for a Dr. Tom shirt or a JPWA shirt. Dr. Tom, what else you got going on? Anything good?
You know what? I do have some things going on. I need to mention them because it's happening just next week. I'm going to, it is Lancaster, Ohio on the 7th of May. And I'll be doing a seminar. I'll also be at the show that night at the fairgrounds. So that's coming up. And again, Deptford, New Jersey is coming up on May 14th. So some cool things coming up, and hopefully I'll see you in Jersey.
Yes, definitely. Did Stan Lane get the best rats just to sneak in the last one? I would say yes. I would
Stan
say
did
yes.
very good.
Yeah.
Stan did very nice. I don't know if he'd take offense to you calling his friends rats, but
And top 3 tag teams of all time: Midnight Express, Steiner Brothers, Road Warriors. That's
yeah, I agree.
that's where all in that. Yeah.
Yep, very cool.
But thank you everybody for listening. We'll see you right back here next week for a little Take You to School with Dr. Tom Prichard. We'll see you next week, folks.